Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to be talking about a topic that's very dear to me and very important to me personally and important to Wrapbook as a whole, which is related to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. My name is Zaid. I'm the VP of Engineering at Wrapbook. I'm based in Toronto in Canada. My pronouns are he, him.
Hi, my name is Jess, and I'm a senior engineer at Wrapbook. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm based in Alabama, unfortunately.
Today we will be talking about our journey at Wrapbook with building a diverse teams. We'll go over what we tried, how it didn't work, and what eventually worked for us in making progress on our diversity goals. But first, before we dive in, I want to give you some background about what Wrapbook is and the context for our diversity, inclusion, and belonging efforts. Wrapbook is the easiest way to onboard workers, pay them, and insure them for entertainment production companies. For example, commercial productions, TV, film, and the sort. Wrapbook was founded in 2018. We have $127 million in funding from Andreessen Horowitz, Tiger Global, and other like Katzenberg from the entertainment industry. The team is 170 people strong, with 68 in engineering and growing. When I first joined Wrapbook in 2020, engineering was a 5-person team. The company total was 20-person company. And we have plans to grow the company to 40 people, to 40 people by the end of 2021. That's a lot of growth for 1 year. It means that getting the right people on the team is critical. So many new people joining means that they will be shaping our values, our culture, and how we operate. Getting it right is non-negotiable. At the time, we identified a few main challenges that we would need to address in order to succeed at doing that. The first one is, as a small startup with no name out there behind us, it's going to be hard to stand out. We need to be bringing in talent and compete with much larger companies and well-established players for the same pool of talent. The other challenge is building a diverse team in a not so diverse industry. And doing that was a key priority for us from the beginning. Turns out that standing out is not so hard. You just have to get the fundamentals of the experience right. So provide a positive interview experience, whether the person joins the company or not. They're going to be talking about that experience and putting either a positive name or a bad name for the company. We were able to structure our interviews so that they're faster than everyone else with a lot less time commitment. In fact, you can interview in a single day and do the whole interview process. And the other thing is it's important for the interview to reflect what is happening on the job. So there are a lot of interviews that I like to call the battle of the egos. The interviewer is trying to assert supremacy intellectually or otherwise over the person being interviewed by asking them questions that have no relation to what's happening on the job. We absolutely did not want that to be part of anything we do. The interview, especially the technical interview, had to reflect what's happening on the job. We also adopted remote first, which means we can meet talent where they are. And we're not restricted by the diversity of the main tech hubs in San Francisco or New York or Toronto. So we find people where they are, and we get a more diverse talent pool in the process. The other question is why should we care about building a diverse team? I want to say it's just the right thing to do. And that should be enough. We shouldn't need to give other reasons. But it's also been shown that diversity leads to better outcomes. Why is that? Diverse teams have diverse perspective shaped by different life experiences, which means we're thinking of problems from more angles and coming up with better solutions as a result. The team will also reflect our customers, so we will understand the customer mindset and the problems that they would be facing and be able to better anticipate them and provide them with better solutions. Also, underrepresented groups face additional challenges and hurdles in the industry. So if we're able to provide them with an environment where they can succeed, we can actually help make the industry itself more diverse, and as a result, more resilient and provide a better outcome for everyone because the industry itself has wider sets of perspectives. Okay, so how did we go about doing this? Start with the fundamentals, basically. A key point is we need support from the leadership. When I joined Wrapbook, there were no questions about whether we're going to be building a diverse team or not. We talked about it from day one and decided to go ahead with it. You can do some individual efforts on local teams to try to build a diverse team, but it's always going to be localized. And what happens if the people you hired move to other teams, or they're trying to work with other teams, which should be happening. You shouldn't be siloed into a diverse island in a not so diverse company. It doesn't scale. You cannot repeat this process. You're not going to get very far in an island. So you need whole company buy-in to diversity efforts. The second part is to reduce bias throughout the process and throughout the company. So as much as we'd like to eliminate bias, we all have some internalized prejudices based on our life experiences, based on the messages we hear, including against people who look like us and behave like us. The other thing is, if we don't care to, we don't put the effort to reduce the bias, it's very easy to negotiate against ourselves through the interview process. I like this person. We had such a good conversation. Therefore, let's hire them, without thinking of maybe other aspects that we're overlooking just because we like the person, and vice versa. We need to establish standardized hiring processes with clear rubrics, clear success criteria, so that we're evaluating everyone from the same baseline. We need to establish job levels and expectations for everyone in the company, so that we're also measuring people from the same set of expectations. We need objective hiring criteria. We need inclusive job descriptions that are not off-putting to certain groups. Also bring in multiple interviewers into the panel so that you have varying perspectives in the interview. This way, if everyone agrees that the candidate should be hired, no problem. If one person says hire and the other one says not, then we need to have a conversation, understand, are we overlooking something? Is the rubric that we're using missing a key piece? Or maybe some unconscious bias went into that decision, and reflect, record it, come back to it, and improve for the next candidate and the next candidate experience. One key piece of advice that I see out there is that all candidates should see people from underrepresented groups on all interview panels. And this is great if your company's already hit its diversity targets, you already have a diverse team and it's just happening naturally. But what if you're starting from a place where there are challenges and diversity? You have a lot of groups that are heavily underrepresented in your team. What happens if there are 2 women on the team in a 30-person engineering team, and you're asking them to be in every single interview so that you present a diverse image? How are they going to perform their core job duties? How are they going to advance in their career? What impact will that have to their ability to become senior engineers and staff engineers and managers and leaders that represent the group? I'm not a fan of this if we're not there. Let's build a diverse team and show the diversity in the interview panel that way. And if you are going to ask them to do interviews, use that time strategically. The second part is we need to make sure that the environment, the people we interview and hire, is inclusive, that the people you're bringing in are not going to create a hostile environment for the underrepresented groups that you are interviewing. And that means we need to filter out people during the interview process on their attitude towards diversity and inclusion. How? Ask about it. At Wrapbook, when the recruiters meet with the person for the very first time, they ask them about their views on diversity. Why do you think there are less underrepresented? Why do you think there are underrepresented groups in tech? Why do you think that problem exists? And a lot of candidates say to us, that's the first time I've ever been asked this question in an interview. We ask it again during the hiring manager interview. And we talk about it in the final stage interviews. And yes, we have said no to technically brilliant candidates that would have created an unwelcoming environment for our underrepresented groups. We absolutely have to filter on that.
So the interview process is as much for us as candidates as it is for companies seeking new hires. It's our chance to determine, is this company and its culture the right fit for me? Will this company provide me with the opportunities to fulfill my current or even future career goals? So while I was interviewing several months back, I was struck by Wrapbook's emphasis on inclusion. It started from the first interview and stayed consistent through each interview round. But I was wondering, was my experience unique? So I talked to a friend of mine who's in the audience and happens to be a male to compare our experiences to see if we were receiving the same types of questions and the same positive experience. And we were. So this really sent the message to me that Wrapbook was prioritizing an inclusive team at the company level, and as a byproduct, it would create a team of like-minded individuals. And I wanted to be a part of it. So I received an offer. What happened then? On my first day, I received an onboarding checklist specifically tailored to me with all the details of specific milestones I should hit for each benchmark of my first 90 days, information to ramp up on all things Wrapbook. So I wasn't left with that typical uncertainty as a new team member of when should I be shipping my first story? Because I think that's a feeling we all have. And then also, am I ramping up quickly enough? I was also assigned an onboarding buddy from my team who helped me acclimate to things of the company, its culture, the product, and its tech stack. And it was a person I could go to with any questions, ideas, uncertainties. In my case, my onboarding buddy from my team was a woman, but I later learned that for anybody who joins Wrapbook, if they identify as non-binary or as a woman, they may get an additional onboarding buddy to make sure that they have somebody else from that group to pair with. So why? Why did they do that? I don't actually know the actual answer, but the reason that stands out to me is imposter syndrome. And studies show that imposter syndrome is much more prevalent amongst underrepresented groups in tech, such as women. So a little bit about me. I was the only woman in my software engineering program at my university. And they didn't really know my name. They just referred to me as the chick. And now, more than a decade later, I've spent most of my career as a senior engineer, even spent some time as a tech lead, both as an EM and as a staff engineer. So people actually know my name, although my name is Jessica Lawrence, so sometimes people have a Freudian slip and call me Jennifer, but it's okay. I understand what they mean. But you would think after all of that, I would have tons of confidence and few self-doubts, right? But no, I battle some form of imposter syndrome on such a regular basis, and it gets heightened anytime I have a major change, like joining a new company. But from my experience, having an onboarding buddy, somebody who likely had the same feelings as me, gave me that support system I needed, so I was better able to battle my imposter syndrome and prevent my self-doubts from manifesting into my reality. Now, I've only been here a few months, but now I've assumed the role of onboarding buddy for a new team member. And with this experience, I've seen how it's iterated and improved with each new hire. And really, I think that's due to the encouragement we receive from day one that we should improve this process for the next person. We should be a part of it. And that signals something to me in particular, which is gonna sound super cheesy, but I think it's true, that I immediately have an impact.
So how did this all work out for us? You know, we had strong feedback from candidates. They had a great experience regardless of success in the interview process. Engineering grew from 5 to 21 by October of last year. But we were not making progress on gender diversity. In fact, we were moving backwards. We started the year with 20% women and non-binary representation, and by October we were at 11%. But this was supposed to work. If you search on Google and look at the recommendations on how to build a diverse team, we were doing it all. It was supposed to be working. So did we give up? Of course not. We decided to double down. We decided to set a top-level OKR for the engineering department for our diversity numbers. And we thought about it. Should we set it at 20? Didn't feel right. That's way too low. 30%? That seems to be where the industry targets, between 20 and 30%. But that still did not feel right. So we decided to set it at 50%. And why 50%? Because it matches the census of the general population. We have a chance to not only improve diversity at Wrapbook, but to contribute to improving diversity in the industry as a whole. We want Wrapbook to be a force to making the whole industry a better place for underrepresented groups. And I want to talk about a key point here, which is improving diversity does not mean you compromise on rubrics and lowering expectations. You give everyone the same bar, the same interview process, the same set of standards. If you start playing favorites with certain groups because of their background, you're going to create a backlash. And that backlash is not something we want. We don't want to be moving backwards. We want to create a level playing field for everyone and help people succeed regardless of their background by providing them with the environment where they can do their best work.
We also need to be aware of unconscious biases. We all have them all the time. Pretending otherwise doesn't do us any good. We need to surface them to be better equipped to prevent them from impacting our feedback or decisions, to learn from them, to grow. Because ultimately, we don't want to replicate the status quo of the industry. And I'm going to make an assumption here that everybody in the room is going to agree with this next statement. We want to be a part of making it much more diverse and much more inclusive.
Okay, so what did we try this time around? to actually make progress on our goals. The first one was to partner with organizations that represent underrepresented groups, whether it's gender or BIPOC organizations. And this helps, gets our name out there. We might get a couple of applicants here and there, or a couple of people to talk to, but it's not enough on its own. The next thing we thought about is perhaps we can reserve a role that would be for underrepresented groups. The problem with this is it doesn't scale. You can't apply it across the whole department. And more importantly, it actually is discriminatory. What happens if you get an applicant and they get through the interview process, they pass for that role? Do you say no to them? I don't think that's fair. So we decided against taking that approach. The other idea that got floated around is the Rooney Rule. The policy comes from the NFL, and the idea is to require that for every hire that you make, that at least one candidate from an underrepresented background gets interviewed. And this was challenging for us to think of how to apply it when we're hiring 30, 40, 50 engineers. If we hired one underrepresented candidate, does it mean we can fill the rest with non-underrepresented groups? It doesn't quite work. It works well when you're trying to fill one or two roles, perhaps in an industry where competition for talent is not as intense, and you have the time to tell people to wait while we interview others. So at some point we figured we can leverage sourcing efforts that our talent team is doing, the outreach that they do to find people. And we decided to try it out for a month. Just say, focus your efforts on finding underrepresented candidates to go through the interview process. We saw some success. We were able to make some great hires that way. The big problem we ran into is the top of our funnel dried up. The response rate to our outreach dropped drastically, and we didn't have as many candidates to interview in that month. As you can guess, we did not give up. In fact, the talent team got together, put their heads together, and came up with a new strategy for reaching talent. The big idea that they had was to actually create a database of names, gather thousands of female names, include names that are more common in different ethnic backgrounds, and use that as part of the search terms. And suddenly, we were finding candidates that were not coming up in any other search. The algorithms were probably Search algorithms were probably excluding them in the first place, and we were starting to have conversations with them. And it actually worked. We were seeing better response rates, we were getting candidates, and we were making hires as a result of this. So we decided to make the strategy permanent. The talent team focuses 100% of their efforts on improving representation of underrepresented groups. Anyone who applies, any of you in this room, if you apply, you're going to go through the process. We're not stopping any of that. If anyone is referring anyone in the company, we're not stopping any of that. It goes through. So we're not discriminating against anyone. We can repeat the process for as long as we need to, as long as we want to, and it scales. So these are three key things that we wanted to achieve, and we have a way now for building a diverse team. So what is the result? Our gender representation grew. Gender representation for female and non-binary grew from 11% in October to over 32% today. And it's continuing to grow. In fact, we had a goal to hit 30% by end of June, and we just smashed through that. I'm very confident that we will hit our target for 50% at some point. So I want to just recap the learnings that we've had from this. The time to start working on diversity is from the beginning. It's never too early to pay attention to it. The conventional wisdom for what works and doesn't work might not work in your company, so it will take iteration, it will take trying. We need to build processes, tools, and an organization that strives to reduce bias throughout it. We need to focus on inclusion so that we don't lose underrepresented folks from the company after they join, and create an environment where anyone who does not look like the majority of the people feels excluded, and they're going to leave the company, and if they see another company like that, they're going to leave the industry. We want to be good stewards of the industry. The whole company and leadership of the company needs to buy in. This is key to enabling, this was key in enabling Wrapbook to double down and actually find a strategy that works for us. It's also important to acknowledge that without that whole company buy-in, the talent team might have not agreed to double down on that strategy. It's a team effort. We all have to think together and work together in finding diverse talents and improving the industry. We've grown our diversity numbers from 11% to 32% today, and on our way to 50%. And one thing I want to stress is that we've only covered a tiny portion of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what it means to do it in a company. We can probably talk about this for hours at a time. Things like, how do we do promotions? How we do performance management? How do we do hiring? How do people deal with conflict in the company? How are decisions being made? All of these play big factors in creating a space where everyone can thrive regardless of their background. I hope that you find these lessons helpful and that you can apply them wherever you work. If this resonates with you, come talk to us. There's many of us in the conference, 18, I want to say, of us, if I'm counting right. You can visit our booth as well. We have Polaroid cameras. You can get a picture taken. There's popcorn there, or hang out on the couches. We would love to talk to you. You can also learn more on our career website. We're hiring for many different roles, so looking forward to chatting with you. Thank you for listening, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Yeah, 1 minute spare.
Yeah. We have 1 minute if there are any questions. The question is, have we thought of including neurodiversity in our diversity efforts? Absolutely. Gender diversity is only one dimension. There's bias against age, neurodiversity, like backgrounds, and we like to make the effort to accommodate whatever people needed. We've had interviewers that said they prefer written communication. They didn't want to have the camera on during the interview. So we'll do the pairing exercise with no camera and then talk about it, and then they can present whatever they do in the pairing exercise as they're ready at different points. So we'll make accommodations to whatever is needed in terms of style. It's not relevant to how you conduct your job as long as you're able to conduct it and collaborate with the person. So the question is, how do you provide tools to make people feel safe when they're coming in? I think this one is a multifaceted aspect. Like it applies to everyone who's joining. You want to have teams where you provide the psychological safety and trust across the board for people to be able to bring issues forward and talk about them. So it's fundamental across the board that managers and teammates are providing that environment. And you also want to think of what happens if there is an environment where that's not happening. You made a bad hire for one reason or another, like the interview process didn't filter and the environment is not there. You want a safety hatch to escape and have the person find someone to talk to that they trust. And this is, where having those safe spaces for underrepresented groups, maybe a private Slack channel, the second onboarding buddy being part of it, and all of that, all of those mechanisms, so that there is a group of people who can speak on your behalf if something is not going right. You kind of have to think about it from all of those angles. And unfortunately, in some companies, HR does not represent the employees, it represents the company and is protecting the company. So in a lot of places, people don't feel safe going to HR, so you have to create those alternative mechanisms and alternative channels for someone to speak on your behalf. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the great questions.